All right, welcome back to another Build Your Village interview series. I'm Sarah Wayne, and I'm so excited for our guest today. We are going to be talking about raising kids and consciousness, and I have with me today the lovely Susan and Martin Fisher of Body of Nine, and I'm going to introduce them to you, give them a formal introduction, and then we're going to just jump into this conversation and see where we go. So. Susan and Martin Fisher are the CEO and co-founder of Body of Nine. Body of Nine is dedicated to introducing and teaching about a body-based assessment, and it's through your posture, your body type, and how you physically express yourself. This identifies what's called your natural number. And since 2012, Susan and Martin Fisher have identified the natural number of over 8,000 people, wow, from around the world, and they share the understanding of how the Body of Nine shows up in so many aspects of human experience. So having your natural number identified gives you an experience of your innate self, taking your understanding of who you are to a whole new level. And through the course of their work with the Body of Nine system, they've witnessed the transformation that takes place within families. And once they have learned their natural numbers, conflicts, challenges, obstacles that exist within families, similar to other relationships in our lives, are supported through that, they transform. And so knowing the natural numbers of all the members of a family provides an opportunity to better understand the emotional, physical, relationship, mental, and spiritual needs of each individual. And this lets each member be seen and heard for who they are as their nature. Body of Nine creates a basis of understanding that helps parents improve their parenting by better perceiving and relating to their unique gifts of their children. So Susan and Martin Fisher are pioneers in the study and research of the 9 natural numbers. Within over 30 years of combined research and experience, their work has led to many new discoveries. They offer a deep understanding of the importance, power, and impact of knowing your natural number personally in relationship and as a parent. And I'm extremely excited to bring them on today because they are also contributing authors to the Raising Wild Ones book, which has just, as we're doing this interview, launched a few days ago and is now a bestseller. And so we co-authored in this book together, and it was just quite a beautiful experience and a joy to learn about their work, have myself identified, my husband and my daughter as well. This work is very impactful and very helpful on many levels for us. And so I am just honored and excited to introduce them to you and share their work with you. So Susan, Martin, welcome. Thank you for being here.
Pleasure.
Yeah, it's great to
Yeah,
see you again, Sarah.
yes. It's
Yeah,
been very interesting working with you and your family as well.
right. Yeah, it's quite a discovery process, and I think that's what let's just start there for a moment. I like to know what your parenting situation is, but first, since we just talked a lot about Body of Nine, can you give um, just a quick overview of identifying people with the Body of Nine? Like, what brought you guys into that work of discovering that that's what you were meant to be doing with your lives?
I discovered my natural number as part of a leadership training program that I was doing when I was becoming a life coach back 20 years ago. And
Okay.
it was profound. Uh, I immediately decided I wanted to know the natural numbers of all of my family. I got my kids identified, my parents, anybody that would agree to get identified. And I studied for 9 years with the people who made the first observations of the 9 physiologically different kinds of people. Then in 2012, Martin had showed back up. We have a sweet love story. We met 2 weeks after I married my second husband, and we were very good friends, and then lost touch for 13 years. Both went along some incredible journeys, and then reconnected in 2007. And then finally in 2012, we went to Burning Man together. And that was kind of the stepping out for both of us into knowing that we were here to introduce this work to the world.
Yeah, what Susan sort of glossed over because she's somewhat, she should be proud of that. She was at the time raising 3 kids for 7 years on her own.
Mhm.
So part of the need to know and this understanding of Body of Nine and the way that it helped her family survive for these years when she was on her own is an important part of the story. And when I came along, it took me a while to sort of really feel the truth. I knew there was something very, very important in this discovery, but it wasn't until Burning Man in 2012 where I realized that part of my purpose in life is actually to help this information get out to the world, because it does change families, it does help us evolve as human beings. So.
Right.
Right, and that's when we started our research, was in 2012 at Burning Man. We stood in front of the first year 50 people, and then we went back, and then we started going to festivals all over. We did 100 people in one day at a festival in San Francisco. We started just working with as many people as we could, because it was burn out of Burning Man. We did it all as a gift for as long as we could, and we worked with people from over 50 countries, from 8,000 people from around the world, and our research has been very conclusive that there are 9 physiologically different kinds of people. You can tell by looking at a person based off the shape of their body, the quality in the eyes, how they use eye contact, their energy signature, the muscle hold in their face. There's all of these things that are constantly giving us clues. We as humans know these things subconsciously about each other. But when you bring it conscious, it creates this opportunity for choice that is missing when it's unconscious.
And while it is fascinating and interesting to know that we each have a natural number, and each of us has 9 centers in the body, one of them is born active, we call it a natural number. The really fascinating part about this, and why it's important, is that the numbers don't repeat in families. So you, your husband, and your child are not the same natural number. Your brothers and sisters and your parents don't share the same natural number. Of course, when you get past 9 people in the family, it tends to repeat, we think. But just knowing that everyone around you is different, and that when you're raising your children, they're not like you. No matter how much you would have liked to have been raised, if you try and raise your children that way, you're not serving them as well as you could.
Yeah.
And it's a really important thing.
It's like a fundamental difference. Even though we may have some similarities on some core levels, there's this fundamental difference that I'm through Body of 9 that we notice. Yeah. So
yeah, just simple things like eye contact.
Yeah.
You know, there's kind of a joke in the world, if you will. I believe the universe has a sense of humor to some extent. That of the 9 natural numbers 1, 2, and 3, 4, use eye contact as part of the relationship building process. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 can be distracted by eye contact. So we find many parents that go with their children. It's like, well, why aren't you looking at me? Or the child's like, look at me, mum, look at me, mum. And the other person, it's not how they're built. So just knowing that, it starts to explain so many things in the world that we just don't communicate very well, because what you care about, Sarah, is so different than what your daughter cares about. But as it turns out, your daughter and I share the same natural number, and we care about very similar things. As you've said in the past, my daughter wants to know how things work. Yes, it's built into her. But for you, it's much more about, well, let's have a relationship. Let's talk about, let's be authentic with each other. Yeah. And so each of us has this very different path. And it's when we come together, when we know this about each other, when we can support and honor our children, that's when the world changes. And this is why we're so excited about what we do, so excited working with you in the book. It's all about, let's make the world a better place. And just knowing this makes life so much easier.
Right. It's very easy to cause inadvertent harm to our children, not on purpose, just because we don't know.
Right.
And when you start to see this and know this, it's all of a sudden you're given these tools to support your children. My youngest daughter's a natural number 2. And I found out when she was 4. And she used to do things like grab my face and force me to look at her. And before that, I was like, what is going on here? Why does this child do this? And even to this day, I'm learning things. She's now 24 years old. And I'm learning things about how to support her as an adult. Mm-hmm. I learned things from her about what's important to people who have natural number 2. Because the things that are part of the nature are what gets revealed as you really learn to understand, like paring away the nurture and focusing on what part is the nature. So you're looking at for those commonalities, things that are true for all natural number 2s. And as I learned more about it, it's like, wow, even though I knew the entire time, I still piled my share of inadvertent harm on my own daughter. Not because I wanted to, but because I didn't really understand how fundamentally different her view of the world is and the way she takes in information, what she cares about.
And I think one of the things that we've found and continue to discover is that generationally, things linger. Something that happened to your parents or your grandparents affected your parents, affecting you, affecting your children. And so this is not just a way to help your children be better set in the world and better understood and feel honored and feel and know who they are, so that they can't be swayed by peer pressure, for example, something that affects every parent. Like, well, my children are getting affected by the people around them, but also it helps us have a better relationship with our parents. Because if you can heal the relationship that you have with your parents, it helps you heal the family. It helps dissuade, diffuse the intergenerational karma that sometimes we see, that even within our family, there's things that happened two generations ago that are still affecting our children. But knowing some of these things and knowing that our children.
You don't have to answer everything in the first question.
I know, I'm sorry. I get carried away. Just so profound.
Well, I'm going to actually pull this back into a more personal approach. And you've mentioned your children, but I want to give the people listening like a better understanding of what your parenting situation looks like now. Obviously, your kids are grown. You said you have one living with you. Can you just give us an understanding, since you have a combined family, and what that looks like together?
Yeah, I have 3 daughters that are 2.5 years apart, so over 5 years they were born. The oldest is now 29. The middle is 27 this year, so she's 26 right now, and then the youngest just turned 24. And I found out their natural numbers when they were 4, 6, and 8. Profoundly changed how I parented them.
Yeah.
And as Martin said, I was a single mom for 7 years with 3 kids, with literally no support outside. I had a neighbor. She and I did everything together. I survived as a result of, the community of women that I built around me at the time. And the power of finding out my natural number was probably the thing that got me through the most. I mean, I did all the things that you do during those, when you're recovering from being in an abusive alcoholic relationship. I did Al-Anon, I got coached, I did therapy. But the thing that made the difference, that took me out of the hole and returned me to a far more healthy person at the back end of my journey, was knowing my natural number and learning to activate the other 8 in my body. So after Martin showed up, when the kids were 10, 12, and
I'm going to pause you for just a moment before you go into that. Can you share an example, like how that showed up for you? What did you do differently knowing your natural number? What was something that?
As a 6, 6s feel everything all the time.
Okay.
Vibrationally, energetically. So my chest is like a drum. And before I found out, my chest was collapsed and completely, utterly overwhelmed. And I lived with a pit of fear in my stomach. I was constantly nauseous and constantly like, when is the other shoe going to drop?
Almost overwhelmed all the time.
Oh, completely. I mean, I look back on that time and realize I probably was never present, ever. I'm almost, I would say, a decade completely unpresent. And that took a toll on my children. When I found out my natural number, all of a sudden, I just learned through my posture to lift, roll my shoulders back, bring my chest forward, to drop into my own power. I also got this deep, deep acknowledgement that it's okay for me to be loud, fast, and powerful. And those things are built into my body. And when I harness them and I use them for the good of humanity, it is huge. It makes a huge difference. And so I went from being this overwhelmed, fearful, collapsed human being in a state of constant anxiety and totally unpresent with my children, not even knowing how I was getting from day to day, to living this beautiful, full life with my family around me, this beautiful man in my life.
And she manifested me.
Wow.
I did literally manifested him.
It is part of
that,
number 6 is this manifestation thing. So she manifested me, even though we'd known each other in the past. There was a series of wonderful coincidences that got us back together. But she literally asked for me to the universe.
I did.
She's a manifester. And I think that's part of the reason she could survive for 7 years, because she was
Every
manifesting
time I
what she
needed something, I manifested it. Yeah. I look back, I'm like, wow. As a single mom, I learned so much from that experience. I learned what happens when you fall through the cracks of regular everyday life.
Hmm.
and you have to rely on the systems that are there to support people that fall through the
Because
cracks.
Susan, she's very well educated, right? She's got an MBA, et cetera, et cetera. So this is not a situation where there was conscious choice here. Things went wrong very badly that
Hmm.
were not her fault. So, and it can happen to anybody, and that's part of things
But
that
it was big learning for
yeah.
me because up to that point, I had actually been a very privileged person, and to go from a place of privilege and education and success professionally to a place where I was barely surviving on a day-to-day basis with as a single mother of 3 children was this huge juxtaposition from where was my life supposed to be and how did I get here,
Yeah.
and then how do I get out of that hole that I had dug for myself. I woke up 38 years old and said, how did I get here? There's that Talking Head song. I always look at that as my mantra of the time. How did I get here? The day's gone by, water's rolling underground into the blue again. Once in a lifetime. It's like, that song is just, it was like, that's where I was. Like, how did I get here?
Yeah.
And now I look at that song from a really different perspective. It's like, wow, this is actually choice. We have choice in life.
Hmm.
And when you feel like you have no choice, life is very despairing. And the reality is, even when you feel like you have no choice, there are actually choices, and you're always making choices. And so, when I found out my natural number, it gave me this opportunity to start making choices from the most powerful and important and valuable part of who I am.
Beautiful.
That re-acknowledgement of my nature and purpose
Hmm.
was the thing that started me on the path, and has always been the beacon for me. It's like, okay, when I forget, I go back to my body. I go back to, okay, what's important and what am I doing, and I follow that light.
Hmm.
And so that you asked that question, how did this happen, and give an example. I have so many examples like that, Sarah. I mean,
I'm
an
sure.
endless bucket full of
But
examples.
that's so pivotal. So you can understand, like, just when you feel like you aren't able to handle your circumstances, and yet then you know yourself on such a deeper level through the work that you guys do, how that just can change everything just by posturing yourself. Like, so I'm curious to know, Martin, when you and Susan connected again and you learned your natural number, how did that shift in how you related to yourself, and then also how you two related? I would like to know how that affected your relationship.
it's a huge. I mean, my natural number's 5, same as your daughter's was said. And for me, I went into computers at a very early age because I had real trouble dealing with people and their emotions and their needs.
Mhm.
Natural number 5, part of my job is to help other people. It's built into me. And it took me years to realize that and accept that. And so understanding that I was a natural number 5, and only in the last 5, 10 years, understanding that my need to help other people is not pathological. It's actually a gift that I give. And being able to enjoying being with people, going with computers because I could turn them off if they were annoying me, to actually enjoying interaction and being in relationship with people. A huge shift. And finding my purpose, because in the computer world, you're not changing the world. You're writing computer programs, you're doing things. I'd probably be working at Google or Facebook now. I was at Oracle, I was at Yahoo. And so being in a place where realizing there's more than just the sort of the bits and pieces. How everything works is nice, but helping other people and trying to change the world and being able to understand this beautiful woman and having her understand me and understand why she's so different and why that's a gift to me and not something that's here to annoy
Irritate
me,
you.
and vice versa. Right? We both, we're human beings. We have relationship. We have our days where we annoy each other more than we love each other, but we always love each other, and we very quickly recover back to a place of love because we can activate all nine. And literally, if we were sitting here and having, the three of us were not getting on, Susan and I could sit, look at each other, do natural number 2.
But we don't need that because Sarah's here creating this
yeah,
really intimate
yes,
connection for us.
but we can connect to each other with just a look.
Yeah.
Because we can activate all the 9 parts in our body. So it changed my life fundamentally, and it's been fantastic.
We have I actually, Martin was the first person I ever identified on my own without any supervision from anybody.
Mhm.
And my daughter, Phoenix, my eldest daughter, recorded it, and it's on our website on the About Us page about Susan and Martin. And it's a sweet moment.
It is, yeah.
And it is the moment where we not necessarily consciously, but it was the moment that we connected on a fundamental level.
Yeah, on a deeper level.
That we knew we were going to be together and do
Yeah.
this work.
Yeah.
Maybe it wasn't conscious yet.
No, it was on a soul level almost. It was very
it's a profound moment, and that I talk about that because when you get your national number identified, it is a profound moment. It is it's such a deep acknowledgement of who you are, and I see over and over again, like these beautiful communities that we're a part of because of these author communities. The women and men who've had their natural number identified, you can tell they're just more themselves. You can see them on the Zoom room, and I can look at there, and you can look and say, oh, that person doesn't know their natural number, that one doesn't, and that one doesn't. And energetically, you can see the difference in how they present themselves in the world. It's profound.
One of the first things we learned is don't disbelieve. Right. Because for your audience, there's probably people out there saying, well, that sounds really woo-woo, and it sounds really strange, and how can you be talking about things like spirituality with the body, the rest of it. And we have a spiritual side, each of us. We have this ability to change the world. And if you don't disbelieve in the magic that is you can do the magic.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, I would guess most of the people listening know that, yeah, I go pretty woo-woo here, but at the same time, I'm very practical. And I think that's what I love about this is it taps into, I believe spirituality and science are intertwined. They are actually one at the whole of it. And so what your work does, it embodies that in a lot of ways because it's so practical. I mean, you're visually identifying people. I think that's really kind of the uniqueness about it is I've done a lot with astrology or systems that use astrology and the DNA and things like that, but this is more of a physicality, right? That you guys come through with that. And
yes, it's a physicality that unlocks your spiritual nature in the unique way that is related to your natural number. Because the even numbers are more body-based, and so their connection with their spirituality is more body-based, where the odd numbers are less embodied, and their connection with their spirituality is less embodied. And so when we all talk about each of us has our own unique relationship to that part of ourselves, and the language around it varies significantly, but every single person and every single natural number has a tremendous spiritual component, and they have their own way of describing it and experiencing.
And that's in human design, astrology, all of these truths are part of our reality. We don't know the relationship between astrology and natural number. Clearly, not everyone born at the same time, the same day has a natural number, as far as we can tell. Yeah. But there is a truth to it. Very, very clearly. Human design, same thing. So
it might be that born at the very exact same time. That
it might be when the
possible.
It might be the heartbeat start. We don't
know. Yeah.
We'd love to know, but we may never know, and that's okay.
Yeah. And that's just what I think makes each person so individually unique, right? We're just these unique expressions, and even if you have an identical twin, there's still this like unique expression about that person, and that's what brings through that
number.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Have you identified
identical mirror? They're always different.
Yeah, I was going to ask, have you identified identical twins and they have different natural numbers? Is that correct?
Always, yeah.
That's really cool.
I think it's why you can tell them apart, just because they develop differently over time. Although what's interesting about identical twins, because they are so tightly connected, they will often embody some of the attributes of their twin as well. So sometimes they could be hard to identify, but definitely different natural numbers.
Yeah, the movement is always one of the determining factors because we move from our natural number center. And so, as you've mentioned, unlike the questionnaires, Myers-Briggs, the rest of these things, or even the Enneagram, this is body-based. What is your face shape, but also how you move. And you're going to move from your natural number center. And the twins you can tell apart by actually how they move, if you can see it.
Also, what part of the body develops. Yep. We did a set of 14-year-old twins that were 7 and 2, and the 7 just had a slightly more prominent brow, and the 2 had these cheeks that come up and pucker when she smiles, and whereas the 7 had a little flatness here. And these are typical differences between in the faces of the and you're understanding that nuance level. I was able to say, okay, you're a 7, you're a 2, and we described it, and it helped them so much to honor each other and to also accept the differences and to individuate from each other.
Especially for the natural number two, that when the younger natural number twos have a problem differentiating who they are versus who they're with.
Right.
And so, how does that show up for you in your own parenting, with relationships with your kids, where you've maybe kind of noticed something more unconscious about yourself with how you were parenting before, and then now becoming more conscious and aware with the work you do, Body Nine, and beyond, right? All the work you've done, I'm sure it's amassed, right? What you're aware of and who you are now. Like, how would you say, like, what's something you had to overcome from that experience with seeing where you were unconscious and then realizing, okay, here's how I'm doing it differently now?
For me, at least, coming in when the kids were, 10, 12, 14,
Mm-hmm.
I tried to be fair by treating them all the same. And it being very clear that
That's a 5 thing.
that's a 5 thing.
Right.
5 is about fairness.
Fairness.
Equality, no. Fairness, yes, there's a difference. But for the children, they're all so different. And my relationship with each of them was very different from the first day. And it wasn't until we understood this better, at least I understood it better, that I could form a real relationship with each of them. Because each of them needed something different from me. And my reactions had to be different, because each of them would come to me with a very different face, if you will.
Or need.
And the needs of one could not be met the same way for the other two. And it was a real struggle for me for the first 5-10 years almost. It's been a long time before.
Well, yeah, I mean, even in the last 2 years,
Right.
your relationship with the girls has changed dramatically as well.
As it's, I adopted them, all 3 of them, last year. And that changed my relationship even more. But I couldn't have done that unless they felt closer to me. And I think that was part of the journey, because the natural number 8, she was the first one to welcome me in the family. The natural number 7 was the last one to welcome me in the family. And we butted heads and still do a little bit, but we care for each other very deeply and understand each other better. And the natural number 2 just wanted me to show up. And so when I started learning how to treat them differently and respect them differently and provide them with what they needed, that smoothed things tremendously. And it really means that I've got a really good relationship with them too.
Yeah, and for me, when my kids were school age, it helped me so much to be able to talk to their teachers about what they needed and to understand. Like my youngest, my natural number 2, the worst thing she possibly could do was displease her teacher. I mean, that was the worst. So she worked very, very hard all the time to make sure she never displeased her teachers. She did much better when she had 1, 2, 3, and 4, 1, 2, 3, or 4 connector teachers than she did with the 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 teachers that she had. I understood this because those teachers placed relationship ahead of performance, where it was the other way around for her 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 teachers. So in school, it helped me tremendously. Not that the teachers knew it, but I knew, and I knew how to support my kids. And I could look at the teacher and say, "Oh, this teacher is great for her," and she was fortunate up to the 5th grade to have all connector teachers, my youngest. Whereas my middle daughter, my 7, school was so easy for her. 7s pretty much can do anything they want as long as they're interested in it. If they don't have interest, they lose interest and they get bored, and then they won't do it. They just flat out won't. So my daughter found a way to make school interesting for her, which was everything she did it her own way, and she always made it more. So that way she could do it her own way and the teacher still liked it. And she also was very, very good at figuring out what the teacher needed. Exactly. So she was an advocate for her own self.
Yes.
If the teacher wrote, she did this all the way through college. She got straight A's in finance and accounting. And if she answered a question and what got marked wrong, she would go to the professor and she would ask and say, "Well, this is how I read this question. This was my answer and why I answered it. And I think that there was a problem with the question, not a problem with my answer." And the guy would give her credit. And she got literally straight A's, never, not even an A-, I don't think, for 4 years, which I find almost impossible.
Part of that's because we knew she's a 7 and we've honored that and supported her ability to do that.
Yes, to ask questions, to challenge the status quo, to push the boundaries, and knowing that she interacts with the world in such a different way. And I also never gave her chores. I never asked her to do things because it wasn't going to work anyway. So why do that? Rather, I gave her space to bring herself into the family in the way that she felt like she should be contributing. And she does.
No, she does
She's
contribute,
tremendous.
Yeah.
But if I asked her to take the garbage out, it was not going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
So I just didn't. And that made a lot less strife in our family as a result of not putting these artificial structures around my children's needs.
Did you have to discover these things along the way? Like you kind of knew the
Yes,
basics,
unfortunately.
Oh yeah.
and then what is that? How does that actually practically get interpreted into the family, right? So that's really, this is where I think your work comes through the time that you've had to experience that. Yeah.
Yes, our knowledge of what we've written down in our book, Decode Your Physiology and Discover Your True Self.
Yeah.
There's a tremendous wealth of knowledge in there that has come from our experience as well as the people we've worked with.
Yeah.
So, we've sat down and talked to 8,000 people, many of which are parents, many of which who know their natural numbers of their children. And together we're like, oh, what's it like to raise a 7? And I have that conversation with any parent of any 7. We compare notes.
Mhm.
And I've distilled the nature versus the nurture pieces. So that you can say, okay, this part's the nature, and if you're going to fight the nature, you're going to be fighting it their whole life, and you're not going to support them, and you're not going to honor them. This is the nurture over here. Do whatever you want. Align that nurture to fit the nature.
Yeah, we kind of semi-jokingly say it would be nice to have a book that is how to raise the particular kind of child you have.
Well,
And
the user's manual.
User's
for your
manual,
kid.
and we actually we're halfway there.
Yeah.
The book that Susan was talking
It's
about.
it's a beginner's guide. Beginner's guide to raising children.
But also knowing your natural number of as a parent and your children's, we can also predict what's going to work and what isn't going to work into the future.
Right, and where those perpetual conflicts are going to become a problem. If you have a natural number 7 kid and you try to box them in as a teenager, you're going to get a rebel.
Mm-hmm.
And you're going to get a rebel that might end up a drug addict, that might end up in jail. Or you never have a relationship with again. So, if we put our societal or our parents' or some model, head-based model for how we should raise our children, we will end up in conflict, and we will end up a damaging relationship, and sometimes permanently.
And the children will not feel honored, and they will go away wishing that they'd been treated differently. Mm-hmm. And it's hard, and their relationships will be trying to recover from that early trauma.
The early trauma,
even if it is always inadvertent.
And despite, I certainly my whole life never wanted to ever do any harm to my children, ever, never once. And yet I look back and I'm like, oh, that wasn't so good, and that wasn't so good. And I had a lot more tools than most people do. So it's, parenting's challenging,
And they chose you, right? That's the thing to remember.
Yes.
They chose you to have this experience, to grow them. And while there will be things to heal later, I think that's part of the beautiful experience of being human in some ways.
Yep.
So you can give ourselves, we can unhook ourselves a bit from any guilt with that. But no.
Yes.
Yeah, no.
Like,
I hope I don't have guilt around it. I just try to learn from
yes.
it.
And we're not trying to guilt people into this either.
No.
This is very much about, if you have extra tools, why not use them? Yeah. And when I was growing up, it's like, well, I wish I'd been treated this way. My parents didn't know. They loved me. They were good to me. They did what they could, and I really respect that and love it.
And the rub is, your children don't want to be treated the way you would have liked to be treated.
Right.
So if we just perpetuate the problem, even though we think we're doing something better by trying to give our children what we wanted. Well, they don't want what we wanted. They actually, ironically, because grandparents are often the same as a kid, they actually wanted what you had. So there's a lot of cosmic jokes.
Right, and so that's an important thing that we just snuck in there, is that the numbers tend to skip. So it's pretty likely that one of your parents was a natural number 5, because it does skip generations, and almost definitively, it's almost, we don't know enough. But
we need more data. We need more data.
It's pretty likely that not only, so we give and receive love from our natural number center as well.
Mm-hmm.
So there are two things that happen. One is that your children tend to be the same as your parents tend to be. The other thing is that because they're used to receiving love from you, they're attracted to people with your natural number, which is why we think many times the joke is that we marry our parents. It's a joke.
Well, the reality is that we're familiar with the natural number, right, and the way that natural number gives love.
So 2 of our children are dating 6s.
Which makes me very happy.
You get along.
So, yeah.
I love having these guys around. I mean, it's so easy for me to get along with them and talk to them. And for me, it feels really, really good to have a little 6 support in the family, because I just like it.
So the world is full of cosmic jokes.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. So I know obviously Body of 9 is a cornerstone for you guys, but I want to branch out just a bit and find out, are there any other resources, tools, things that you found really support you in your parenting journey, either in the past or currently, with just how you show up and how you take care of yourselves and take care of them?
Well, for me, the first thing I started when I was in my deep, deep hole was Al-Anon. And
Hmm.
if you don't understand codependence and you are in a relationship with a drug addict, alcoholic, and you stay there for more than a year, you need to go to Al-Anon, because it starts a journey that you need to do. You need that education.
Yeah.
And I had inadvertently been raised in a codependent family where there was no active addictions, but my parents had both been raised in that way, and so I had recreated a codependent relationship, not even knowing that it existed.
Yeah.
Right, so that's very important. Al-Anon has been huge, uh, and then I did yoga for about 5 years. I did Bikram yoga. That
Mm.
really got me into my body, and that was having a practice that gets you into body, even as an even number being more body based. But it really also strengthened me and helped me strengthen my posture.
Hmm.
Posture is such an important part of activating your natural numbers. So
Mhm.
being able to have the strength in your own body to support yourself physiologically supports you spiritually.
Mhm.
So that has been a strong foundation that, so athleticism, athletics, running, whatever your thing is to get more embodied,
Yeah.
so important.
It's probably going to come as a surprise, but for me, Burning Man, the first year I went, changed my life.
Yeah.
Because when I went, Burning Man gives you the choice to be whoever you want to be. And I went not knowing who I wanted to be. And I came home knowing that I wanted to be me.
Hmm.
And that is such a gift. Knowing that, if you can be anybody and you choose to be yourself, wow. So that level of self support.
Well, it was a spiritual, Burning Man is a weird and
Yeah.
unusual experience, but any experience you could give to yourself where you have to step outside of your comfort zone into a place where people are going to honor you
Mhm.
at your deepest self. So putting yourself in environments like that, I
Mhm.
think,
Yeah.
is very important. We did that over and over again, not just at every festival we went
Right.
to.
But that
You
fundamental,
know,
that first year at Burning Man, when I decided that who I wanted to be was me, that changed my life again. And we
yes.
learned so much. Choose love. Living in a non-transactional environment it's a way that humanity can't be practically, but knowing that you can be with people and share things and give a gift, not expecting things in
Yeah.
return. It was fundamental to what we do at Body of Nine. It really was.
Yeah, the principles that are expressed and lived into at Burning Man were very, um, in many ways, have become principles
Right.
that we live by
And some of the people
today.
we met, the idea
Yes,
about holding
relationship.
beliefs as ideas and various other things. So there are so many resources for people such as yourself,
Hmm.
for people to listen to and pick and choose what resonates with their
Right,
bodies.
and we've really enjoyed, human design and astrology, as more time-based information. It's like in this moment, what is happening? What is the alignment of the universe? What is the energetic alignment in this moment? And then, gosh, when I found out my Myers-Briggs, that was the first piece of my, it was so great to know I'm an ENFP and I'm so far out of the extroverted scale. And then that was even further explained when I understood my natural number. I got that physical addition to the intellectual aspect of the personality systems.
Asking for help. And one of the things that came late in my life was learning how to ask for help. I was going through therapy, and I recommend it for everybody. Really, I know it sounds strange, but it's having somebody help you, look at you from the outside, whether it's within your marriage and your partner's doing it or whatever.
Or a coach,
Yeah,
or,
anything that helps and lets you get help,
Yeah.
helps you understand that you're not alone in the world. And I think one of the magical things about your natural number is that it helps us know we're not alone.
Hmm.
and so it was funny. At first, I was like, no, it's always been Body of Nine. I'm like, no, it's actually been all of these pieces from each of the 9 natural numbers, from
Yep.
these beautiful, magical, amazing people.
Yep.
So every single person out in the world has a gift for you.
Hmm.
And when you can learn to see that gift instead of looking at them and saying what's wrong with you, which is most of the time what we do with each other, it's like, oh gosh, Sarah, she's so deep. She's so, she really wants us to show up. Instead of saying what's wrong with Sarah, saying, wow, I am so glad you're here because I'm feeling so connected to my husband because of this experience. And I've been missing that connection. And it's really nice. And because you're here, we get to have that connection.
Right.
And you don't even have to do anything other than be you.
And the ability to take that gift from other people and then pass it on.
Yeah.
Part of the people that we're with and you're with and the listening, we have the ability to take people's gifts and pass it on to other people.
Yeah.
And that's how the world gets better.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's the core of, I believe, all of us seeking who we really are. We're really on this journey to know thyself, and it looks different for everyone. And then eventually you get to a place where all the seeking, all the things that you used as tools, you drop that and realize like those were just tools along the way to really come back to the core of our own power. And I think that's something I express a lot with people that I come into connection with, is that these are tools for right now, right? Like you may need this and then you may drop it later. Or you may use it in different ways that you interpret are important for you. And I think that's important with any modality, any system, is that it's not the end all be all. It's just a great tool to have that reflection, right? Like even if it's just a therapist as your tool, that is what we've all come here just to know ourselves more deeply. And so I'm just so grateful for this work that you're exposing me to, exposing my family and just the world around us, because it just takes it to that next level of embodiment. And that's what I've loved about it for me, learning as a natural four. I've always kind of been aware of my hips, knowing that's where my energy center is, and very consciously ignoring it because I'm trying to do all the other things I need to do. And then since working with you guys and having that time to understand it more, that's been where I've dropped in a lot more with awareness of like, how am I sitting? What have I been doing to take care of my hips? I can change my position now because that will actually help me to open up more and be more centered there. And it's just great. Like it's just an acknowledgement of that is truly something I need to be focusing on, and it is supportive of me. And yeah, I feel like it can cut out some of the noise of.
The thing about Body of Nine is there are absolutely modality aspects of it, posture being one of the simplest part of the modality. But it also is a context that helps you to understand yourself in the context of humanity. So it's like each of the natural numbers brings something important, and together we come together to create a whole. It can't be done without the consciousness around it.
It's a chance for human evolution. And somebody asked us a few months ago, what gives us hope? And this gives us hope, because without change, we're going to go down the Mad Max route. But I have hope. The more people that we talk to, the more people that are doing what you're doing, the more that we can evolve. And we really believe that when people know their natural number, and more importantly, have all nine active, there's a small case to be made that once upon a time, thousands and thousands of years ago, everyone had all nine. Who knows?
We don't know.
We don't know.
It might have been we look back historically, there's evidence that before 350 BC, 3,500 BC, there was more knowledge of this in the world than there is today.
I can definitely. So Susan and Martin, can you share with us some resources that would help people understand how to connect with you better through Body of Nine? Any books or any events or things that you have coming up that you'd like to talk about?
Absolutely. Well, the website has everything, but if you are a coach or a holistic practitioner, obviously the first step is always to get identified. So that's, find out your natural number. You can do that we have 4 ways. You can go to an individual session where you meet one-on-one with Martin and I. You can do a couple session. You can do a family session, and you can do a group session. We just added group sessions. So you join, and that's the most economical way to do it. But you also get to see 7, 8, or 9 other people get identified at the same time, which gives you more perspective. When just you find out yours, it's a lovely experience, and we honor you as deeply as we can, and we have a beautiful conversation. But when you get to see others, which I think that's how you got identified, you've had both of those experiences, and you can see the benefits. So first, getting identified, make an appointment with us, get on there. That's the first step. And
what we actually guarantee that people are going to be happier and feel more in alignment within 6 months,
even if they don't realize it came from this.
Yes.
We have 2 books, plus we have Raising Wild Ones, which just came out with all the authors were identified. These are on Amazon.
This one's an audio book as well.
Okay.
Yes, this one is an audio book as well that you can get off our website. And then for coaches and holistic practitioners, we have a training program. If you want to become a partner, co-create with us, co-create group events, get your clients identified, and learn how to activate the natural numbers. I am so crazy excited about our September 23rd, 4th, 5th event. These are so powerfully transformative that we don't even know what's going to happen at them. We just know that we're going to push the envelope of our knowledge about all the 9 natural numbers with the people that are going to show up in that room with us for 3 days.
Everyone's going to experience all 9 energies in their body.
They'll all experience all 9 energies in their body, and we're going to learn new about every one of those. That's the funnest thing about our work is we're constantly learning. I know so much more about parenting a natural number 2 today than I did when it started out, as you said, trial and error. And this is groundbreaking, pioneering work, not for the faint of heart.
Yeah, that's true. You have to be brave.
But if you're one of those people, if you've been a lifelong seeker, come to Bozeman at the end of September.
Yes, I highly suggest check out Susan and Martin. Definitely get yourself identified. I know anyone who comes to work with me now on a personal level, I'm having them identified because I look at all different aspects of them through iris analysis, gene keys, human design, energy scan. I do that, but then adding body of 9, I can feel gives that other level of physicality of how to approach their work in the world. And so I'm excited to be collaborating with you guys. I absolutely love the work you're doing. And just thank you. Thank you for showing up. I will make sure we share all the links in the description. So if you guys want to check them out, please go to their website, check out their event coming up in September. I know you guys are in Montana, so anyone wants to look out there. Is there anything else you want to share just as a final thought message to anyone listening about the world and about what you're here for?
We can change the world
together.
Yeah, it literally does take a village, as it turns out.
Yeah, and we need each other. And that's one of the things that I do really like about our work is it helps me like other people a lot more.
Yeah.
And
I love it. That's great.
It as simply as that.
Yeah.
I like people now,
Right. Yeah.
and I know how to love people.
We can appreciate
and I can love
even more.
Say again?
We can appreciate our uniqueness even more. And
absolutely, yes,
yeah.
And honor it. Yeah.
Oh.
That's Sarah, and I want to honor you here, which is as natural number 4, you create the space for who we are in this moment to be perfectly acceptable, that we are who we are and deeply acknowledged, and yet you also offer this invitation for what can we become. And as long as we're moving forward on that authentic journey, it's like even just knowing what our own authenticity is a very hard thing for most people.
Yeah. And accepting that they need to be authentic. You can't have an intimate relationship unless you're authentic.
Right. And if we don't even know what our own authenticity is, we can't even start on that journey. And so you are here and that holding the torch for people knowing and finding their way to their own authenticity, because that's different for every person. It doesn't mean you bare your soul to every single person you meet. That's not authenticity, right? Authenticity is you being you, whoever you were born to be.
And in that moment. In that
exactly.
Beautiful. Thank you for that.
Thank you for doing your authenticity work. Yeah, absolutely.
Fantastic. Well,
for connecting us today.
Yay. That's perfect. I love it. Well, thank you everyone. Have a wonderful day, and until next time, we will see you later on Build Your Village, and I will be sharing with you guys an interview coming up soon, where there's also some more Raising Wild One interviews coming up with the other authors. So I'm really excited to be bringing all of them to you in this series. All right, bye everyone. Thank you.